You're listening to Chicago Stories, a podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans, as told to Mayor Emanuel.
This is Mayor Emanuel from Chicago Stories. We're here with Congressman Luis Gutiérrez in the office. So, Luis.
Hi, Mayor.
How are you?
Very good. I don't know if you're the mayor or my friend
today. Yeah. Well, there will be questions as friends, and there will be questions as Congressman and Mayor. Okay. So
you are my friend and the mayor, but just I'm not quite sure what the setting is.
No, it's fine. People don't. I'm going to tell one little story so people know this. That when you take your official congressional shot, you have your suit. It's your picture, the American flag behind you. And when I took my shot, I had spilled coffee on my shirt, and I didn't have a shirt. But the only person with a 15-32 is Congressman Luis Gutiérrez. So the actual congressional official shot of Rahm Emanuel is in a Gutiérrez hand-me-down.
Well, you're very lucky. It's not today because, let me see. Oh, it would fit you, except it'd be really hanging around your neck since I've increased it to 15 and a half.
So some people know this, some people don't. How does a taxi driver make it to Congress and become the national voice on immigration?
Wow.
That journey.
Well, I got to tell you, I wasn't in this office. I was in the office next door. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Harold Washington he wins Democratic nomination. I'm good. I thought, pretty cool, black guy, is the nominee. I'm about 30 years old, right? And then it's like every white Democratic politician just about, maybe Dunn who was like the committeeman and the county board wasn't. They were all with Bernie Epton. Mm-hmm. And the motto of the campaign wasn't for better schools and safer streets, but before it's too late. Mm-hmm. And that pissed me off. It really angered me. The precinct captain from Dan Rostenkowski's office came back by my house in the 32nd Ward, and I greeted them and brought them right into my house because I was a very sensible homeowner. Mm-hmm. These guys, even though I paid property taxes, I knew I wasn't going to get my tree trimmed or my garbage and everything done, that the property taxes, unless these guys kind of facilitated it. And they asked me to put a Bernie Epton poster, and I yelled at them. And I followed them down the street. And I organized my precinct, called all of my friends. Those friends all got together, and we won our precinct. I know the exact vote, Mayor. 280 for Harold Washington to 220 for Bernie Epton. Nice round numbers.
Do we know who the other 220 are?
I know I got a lot of people that lie to the precinct captain. How's that? Because this is in the 32nd Ward, and it's not a majority-minority precinct. It's a majority white precinct. Mm-hmm. And so that was the way the election went down. And I just have to say to you, that my next idea was, oh, wow, all I have to do is, there's 50 precincts in the 32nd Ward, so why don't I just replicate this 49 more times? And I should beat Dan Rostenkowski 280 to 220. Didn't quite work out that way. I ran the next year for a Democratic committeeman, and then I came over here, a guy named Ernie Bearfield. He was chief of staff for Harold Washington, and he called me up, and it was across the hall. The chief of staff's office was across the hall from here, from the other side. And he said, the mayor'd like to offer you a job. I didn't even ask him how much. Mm-hmm. I didn't ask him what it was. I was still driving a cab because I had lost the election. And I said, great. And, all joking aside, that was a big moment in my life.
So they brought you in the fold.
I have to tell you something, Mayor. It was just a wonderful learning experience. And
what did you do?
Well, I was general superintendent of the Bureau of Electricity. Probably, some people would think probably not the best job for somebody who can't put two wires together.
That's right. I've noticed your Jewish motor skills. Okay, I've seen your. I would like to know what the background resume references were for that job.
And but really, what I did is I worked here in the mayor's office, so that's where I got paid. So they paid me out of the streets and sanitation budget, and I worked here in the mayor's office. So I worked.
So you were detailed from the electricity department?
From the electricity. They detailed me about 3 months into it. They detailed me to City Hall because the old commissioner from streets and sanitation, Halpern, he called me, and he had a very big Irish accent. He called me in and he said, I understand you're leaving. I shouldn't even try to imitate this, but I understand you're leaving the office and going to City Hall. And I said, he says, well, you haven't checked in with me. You know, I'm your boss and blah, blah, blah. And you just can't jump in the car and go down to City Hall. And I said to him, that's fine. Here's what I'm going to do, Mr. Halpern. I'm going to call the mayor of the city of Chicago. I'm going to let him know that you object to me going down and visiting with him. You want to know everything we talk about, I imagine. And he says, no, just go do whatever you, and he just like threw me out of the office.
He had a second thought.
He had a second thought, but it was, so I got detailed here, and I worked for Ben Reyes, and Ben Reyes was deputy mayor for infrastructure. And so we had water and sewer and streets and sands, and I learned a lot about just how this city works or doesn't work. But I got to tell you, Mayor, I'm thankful to him for that experience. And more than that, I don't believe I would have successfully won in April of 1986, my city council seat, without the massive, back then there wasn't these PACs, right? And everybody says, well, money. Well, guess what? I didn't have any. I was still a kid from Humboldt Park, right? Without a lot of connections. And, you know, Ed Verdoliak and the Democratic Party had tons of money to back their candidates. And I had Mayor Harold Washington, who put a lot of economic resources. The other thing he did was
shoe leather.
Yes. I mean, he campaigned with me. But he campaigned with me. And to have, if you would see the way the crowds would come to him, right, as he would walk through the neighborhoods. Obviously, the 26th ward was a Hispanic majority ward. It was 65% Latino. But on election day, there were probably as many Hispanic as non-Hispanic voters. That's the way I say non-Hispanic voters, because that's the way Bill Daley used to tell me to refer. He said, don't call them white voters. Call them non-Hispanic voters. But 10% were African-American. 10%, that's a lot. Especially in Harold Washington times.
Yeah, that's a swing, that's a swing vote.
That's like 10%, and you know that 90% of them are going to vote. And they're going to vote however the mayor of the city of Chicago, Harold Washington in that case, asked them to vote. And so I won. And he gave me so much guidance and so much confidence to have the mayor of the city of Chicago put his arm around you and say you could do it, and then back it up with, you know, helping you fundraise. And
who did you run against again?
Manny Torres.
Oh,
and he was a Cook County commissioner.
Right.
And I used to always say, we're going to defeat the machine. And he would, of course, complain that I was the machine. And actually, if you went to his campaign headquarters and said that a street light was out, and you came to my campaign headquarters, and I wasn't elected to anything, the street light would get on a lot quicker if you came to my office, because we knew how to work.
You were talking to the former head of the Bureau of Electricity.
Yeah, and I knew them all. One time I was with Juan Velasquez and Jesus, and we were eating in a Mexican restaurant on Milwaukee Avenue. The lights went out, and the owner says, "This always." And then Juan Velasquez turned around. I'm gonna have him out in 15 minutes. The guy laughed like I have 3 Latino clowns eating tacos in my taqueria here, right? And when he saw the truck show up, that was before we got elected. I will say that it seemed like we had a lot more power and influence when we weren't city council members than when we got elected to the city council.
That work is a lot different.
Yes.
Agitating and solving are not the same thing.
They're not the same thing. So, and then, you know, I supported Mayor Daley in '89. He was kind enough to return the support. And I still remember Juan Solis, who was a city council member, and I ran in 1982 for Congress for a Democratic primary. And I remember I'd met you a few years earlier than that. And I remember going to see Mayor Daley and saying, you know, what do I do? He said, hire the strategy group. And then I went to go see them. I said, I want to hire you, David Wilhelm. And he said, it's $5,000 a month. I said, I've never made $5,000 a month. How am I going to pay you $5,000 a month? Needless to say, I hired them and paid them. And it was an investment very wisely made. They helped guide my campaign and help me. The gist of that story is that Juan Solis recognized that it was a new Hispanic majority congressional district. I recognized it was a Hispanic majority district, but I also recognized and was told, because I had good people that surrounded me, that the majority of the voters would more likely be non-Hispanic on primary day than Hispanic. And they were right. It was about 43% registered Hispanic, 65% by population. And so our campaign was a very broad campaign. So every time my opponent, Solis, would say, Mayor Daley is with Luis Gutierrez, I would say, that's the one thing he's got absolutely right. He's with me. And we wouldn't argue that. I won, and then 25 years in Congress. And I got to tell you, Chicago's a beautiful immigrant city. Not only Latino, but Ukrainian and Polish and Korean, and you name the country, and Chicago has immigrants from that country.
A giant diaspora.
It is just, and I learned that very, very early on. And so when I opened my office, and you were a congressman, and you and I were colleagues, and we'd have our office, and just, what do people want? How many people came in this week and wanted to know where the Social Security check was? None. How many people, right, you go through the drill, right? Then you ask, how many people wanted a visa, wanted to know where their visa was, their green card?
50% of my congressional work was all immigrants.
And that was yours, right?
Right.
Okay, mine was more like 80.
Right.
So as soon as I realized that, I said to myself, wow, I better refocus, And so we started doing citizenship.
Right.
And I don't remember, Doris Meisner, you were there, you were working
Clinton
with
White House,
the Clinton
INS,
White House.
yeah.
And Doris Meisner was the head of immigration and naturalization. So it was a lot simpler then.
INS.
Yeah, the nice people, they worked in one part, and the people that deported people worked somewhere else. And they didn't.
Church and state. It was separate, man.
They were separate. And I went to her, and she said, you can't do that citizenship stuff. And I said, what do you mean? He says, well, you got to go to a locally affiliated, sponsored, recognized, community-based organization, work with them to help the people of the 4th Congressional District become citizens. And I said, well, I don't go to the VFW before I help somebody with veterans. And you get what I'm saying, right? And so why do I have to go to them for this? I said, I'm a congressman. I said, I control your budget. I was a freshman congressman, so it was pretty.
She saw through that threat.
She saw that. But anyway, she wrote me a letter, and she said, if you do these things, I will authorize you. And can I tell you something? I don't believe anybody else has ever been authorized. And to do it. To this day, people still believe that people are still wonder why, and please don't call the ethics committee, because you heard this today, that somehow I am violating by doing this kind of work, helping people become. Actually, some people think that we're not supposed to actually help people fill out forms, like Obamacare, like actually fill out
I used to do it on tax returns.
Right?
In my office, yeah.
What do you mean I can't? And so I always said to myself, if there were ever ethics complaint I wanted to debate or have filed against me, is that I did
constituent service.
Yes, I filled out forms for people.
But I bet you always on this. Once you help somebody get a citizenship, the whole family was in line. It was like the loyalty that was created.
Yes.
It was. I still have a gift that somebody gave me of an Indian couple that we helped the couple become citizens, like a thing of a Taj Mahal done. It was ornate. It was unbelievable, but it's the loyalty, the friendship. You help people get across that threshold, right? There's nothing as satisfying.
I still remember. I mean, so many people we help become citizens, and even other elected officials, parents we help become citizens. And I remember one woman saying, I didn't make it the first time, but I'm going to study even harder the second time, and I'm going to do it again, and challenging everybody to do it. It's a great experiment, right? It's one of the avenues that you experience and experiment with our democracy, is becoming a citizen.
Let me ask you, Luis, because I know how I feel about when certain things happen. If you can recreate when the news of what happened in Puerto Rico, I mean, this horrible natural disaster, in the two parts. One is when it first happened, you saw the devastation. Then also how you felt, what was your first instincts, and then when you see what has and has not happened in Houston compared to what's happened in Puerto Rico, how do you feel? And what can we do?
Wow. So the first thing is, it's interesting when you have been as blessed as I have and as fortunate as I have in this life. I mean, got a wife that's worked almost all her life. She's a homemaker now, right? But Soraida's always been out in the work field, and we've been very blessed in this country, right? And so here's the interesting, I didn't worry about my house. I didn't. I was like, it is what it is. Oh, I thought, it occurred to me, I'm going to go to Home Depot and buy everything and ship it there because there probably won't be anything there. Yeah, but I didn't worry about my house. What I did was, I felt such a pain and agony and such a sense of responsibility to do something about it. And I have to tell you something, I can't think of another moment when I would watch the news and felt such an immediate urgency and at the same time an impotence, right? Like I can't do anything. And so I hope you allow me to share that.
Sure.
That led me to that Saturday, and I called you like at 8:30 in the morning because I had just watched CNN. I
can tell you exactly where I was when you called.
and I said, and I was like, what do I do? Because I don't have any power. I don't have any assets. I don't have. So I said, well, let me call somebody who might, right? So I called you, and I said, look, I got all this stuff, right? And we're raising this money, but we need to get it to Puerto Rico. And I knew, Mayor, that it was foolish to go and put boxes of water and food and clothing, because I had learned from my past experience, it's money. But in this case, Mayor, can I just say something?
Sure.
It didn't matter. If you sent them money, they couldn't do anything with the money either. This was such a total collapse of the system. In most situations, you give money, people get money, and they buy stuff, and they know how to use the money.
Right.
And you don't get in the way by sending. But in this case, actually, the best way to help people, I know this sounds it's a little contrarian, was to put it on a airplane. But where do you get an airplane? And then about an hour later, right, we had an airplane, United Airlines. And you know what? I'm going to be thankful to them. They were really good.
To fill in the blank, is you called and I had Oscar call you.
You had him call me up
and those were also the days when they weren't landing planes.
No, they weren't landing planes, and they weren't receiving. So even if you had a plane, they weren't allowing you to land in Puerto Rico with that plane. Right. And so you called the CEO, which interestingly enough, even if I had Oscar's number and called him, I couldn't have called him and asked him for a plane, because that would have been another violation. Luis Gutiérrez asked for a plane. It's interesting. But I can ask you can get a plane, and I can say, I got stuff to put in it. And they were wonderful. And I want to say also, so we had this money, but it takes time for it to go through the bank,
Fill through the system.
And clear. And the Walmart people, they have those stores. I can't remember the name of
For the podcast, it's the mega store.
Yeah, it's a big mega store of Walmart, right? And I'm going to tell you something. We had like $60,000.
Right.
We bought a lot of stuff because we didn't take it from the public. We took our cash because that way we could separate the water. We didn't want to ship water. We wanted to ship stuff that was really, really needed. And I'm going to tell you something. She let the stuff go. She's a hero. She let the stuff go without the check having...
She, the lady at Walmart.
Yeah. She let it go. She let it go from the Walmart store onto our truck and onto the plane you got us from...
Before the check cleared.
Before the check cleared. It wasn't until 3... Now, we showed up the next morning, right? Trying to figure out a way. And we pulled out a credit card and we cleared it up. But still, she let it go, you know.
That's a good song. That's a good
you
song.
know, it's one thing, and you're a congressman. No, she put her job on the line, and so we're thankful to her, and we're thankful to a lot of people.
Luis, do you think the government's response to Puerto Rico, what I would call the failure to respond, do you think this is intentional, or do you think, as they argue, they're getting the same as Houston got and Miami got? Or do you think that FEMA and the operation is just overwhelmed with 3 natural disasters rather than one at a time? And
here's what I think. I think Puerto Rico is being treated differently. Mm-hmm. When it hit Florida, it hit a few towns. Mm-hmm. It hit hard in those towns, and it was devastating, but didn't hit all of Florida. Mm-hmm. So, you know, Orlando was up. Mm-hmm. I mean, many towns were up, and a lot of...
Tampa's up.
Yep, there's a lot of it that was up, even after... But in this case, so you can send resources geographically pretty close, right, to help out. Mm-hmm. The infrastructure, obviously, is superior there than it is in Puerto Rico, too, so it's easier to get up. In Texas, it was Houston and some other... But it wasn't Dallas, it wasn't El Paso, it wasn't all of Texas. In Puerto Rico, Mayor, as...
The whole island.
There's 78 municipalities. They all got wiped out. So the whole electrical grid got wiped out. The whole water delivery system. When you and I go,
people know, so we're going to go at the end of March.
At the end of March, you and I are going to go, and we're going to go. You're going to see what it's like, and you're going to be able to hear personally from people. I could not believe that the richest, most powerful, most technologically advanced nation in the world, the United States of America, would have such a poor response, such a tragic response, because people's lives were lost. They said, "Oh, it's 16 people. 16 people. If you're one of the 16, is a lot." Right. But it's not. It was over 1,000 people. Now the New York Times and others have done studies. A lot of people died. A lot of people, and let me just say this, many more people died as a consequence of the inept response to Maria than Maria herself. They were alive. Maria came and they were still alive. And I hope that when you and I travel there, we can go into the interior of the island so that you'll see somebody, she or he'll be 80 years old, and they've got an air tank, and they're living in their house, but the air tank needs electricity to run so they can get oxygen. Many of us take it so for granted. People die if there's no electricity for that oxygen.
Between now and then, so if we gave one message to folks, what's the one thing the Puerto Rican, either administrators or more importantly, the population needs right now, that if people wanted to still help financially or to donate?
I would say now more than ever, donate. There are many good causes. You can look them up on the internet. I'm not going to pick one or another. In Chicago, we have made sure that, I will say one thing, we've raised over $200,000 in Chicago. And Zoraida, my wife, and I have personally delivered almost every last cent. I want to say, when I called you that morning that I felt this...
Right.
Total lack of this powerlessness. I don't even know the word, right? This lack of power and ability to do anything. And you got the plane. We used the first 60,000 of the 200 to go buy stuff and put it on the plane. I just want to say that that's what we need to continue to do. And we have continued to take every last cent. And so everybody who gave money to the Puerto Rican agenda, I want you to know that no money was used for salaries, for personnel, for anything.
All went to direct benefit.
It all went directly to benefit people, and we're going to continue to directly. Okay, so we gave $5,000. So we went to one mayor in Caguas, and he bought 500 solar lights. And you think, Gutiérrez, really, 500 solar lights? But if you go to a neighborhood where there are 500 homes and there's no electricity, and everybody puts that solar light out during the day, at night, you lit up the whole neighborhood. In another town in Vega Alta, the mayor wanted to open up the Senior Citizen Center, right? Needed $5,000. They opened up the Senior Citizen Center. And another, the mayor, interestingly, went to the high school with me, called the graduating class, right, and all the senior members of the graduating class, and said, I want you, and he handed the $5,000 in cash to them. The mayor said, here, Madam President of the graduating class, I want you to determine who in this high school, which one of your classmates most needs and how much of this they need. And it was a double experiment, right? One in giving, but at the other, letting the youth
decide.
And I'm going to go back for their graduation this coming May to visit with them. So how did the money, but the mayor of San Juan, Carmen Julín,
Right.
So when you got us the plane, so one mayor gets us the plane, so Rahm Emanuel gets us the plane, we loaded up with the stuff from the people. You know who we gave it to? We didn't like pick, every say, oh, you picked your preferential. She was the only one on the ground who could guarantee that what we were sending would be distributed. She got that plane left here like on a Monday morning. It got to Puerto Rico at 1 or 2 o'clock. By 5 o'clock that evening, there were stickers being put on them because she got some stickers
moving
printed
it into the neighborhoods
with stickers that says "From the people of Chicago," right? And she put stickers on it, and she started handing out the cans of potted meat and the diapers and the Infamil and I.
Let me guess, she didn't throw it at them, did she?
Yeah, she didn't throw them, and she put it out there, And so the next time we went, I got a little smarter. I bought it at we took $60,000 with us in money, and we went and we bought it in Puerto Rico. Therefore, I didn't have to call you for another airplane. Because what we found was in the major metropolitan areas, there were lots of goods, but it wasn't getting out to the countryside to people who needed it. So we went there, we bought it, we got a couple of trucks, and we delivered it. Point is, people continue to need that kind of stuff, right? They continue to need food, and they continue to need batteries and stuff. Just the basic, just to, Infamil.
I will tell you, it's an amazing thing because I remember FEMA failing under Bush 41. Clinton ran on it and showed that FEMA can be an amazing source, and then it fell down again under Bush and Katrina. President Obama, if I may say, the Democrats, there's not a partisan speech. I actually think the heart of Bush was to do right, but there was an incompetence as it related to administration. But this is actually, I'll say it, an intentional act of benign neglect. Yeah. And in the people of Puerto Rico, I actually have respect for their spirit and their strength to keep going. Let me ask you.
I just want to say a couple of things. The president said they want the government to do everything for them. Yeah. What a lie. Mm-hmm. The first responders are the people, are your neighbors, is the mayor, is the firemen and the policemen who didn't go back to their families, right? I mean, the doctors that stayed in the hospitals.
Public servants.
They were all there. The guys who tried to put the electricity back up. They weren't waiting for the government, number one. Number two, I think Puerto Rico is a metaphor, right, for this administration. No, look at Puerto Rico and look how they treat it, and then think how they treat the transgender community in the military, or the Muslim band, or Mexicans and the wall. Or women and women's right. It is a metaphor for the way the government just turns its back on people.
So, Luis, there's been a lot of back and forth of what everybody's expecting the president to say about immigration, and then he issued this wall for DACA. Okay, is this a head fake? And what do we do to try to get is there earnestness on the Senate side without that on the House side? Because it seems, where do you think this is going? And if you were looking in your political crystal ball, where do you, what can people do besides obviously continue to raise the temperature, which is not a bad thing to do, I'm saying.
Well, people continue to raise the temperature, and let's focus on this about lives, okay? It's about lives. The lives of 800,000 young men and women who signed up for the deferred action, for the DACA program. 800,000 dreamers. It's about their lives. And then I want just to think a moment, because thousands have already lost their work permits. Now they're vulnerable to deportation. Are we really going to allow them to be deported back to El Salvador? to Honduras, to Guatemala, to face what? To face human trafficking? To face death? To face rape? To be in the hands of... You don't think the drug cartels are just at the airport ready for those airplanes as they arrive? You don't think that they are looking? And they're going to know that these kids have family members back here. And they're going to say, those are exactly the ones we want to hold hostage now for ransom. I mean, think of the criminal enterprise that exists and the lack of any civilian government there to protect them. So I think of their lives. And the Democrats, I have to say, Senator Dick Durbin, I cannot imagine how hard it was for him, but it was hard for him. And he says, $1.6 billion. Here's your down payment on your wall. And he went with Lindsey Graham, and we all know what the president laughed at them and scornfully talked about S-hole countries from Haiti. So the way he said that all of these countries, and so they did, and then Schumer. But if the Democrats were going to say, we're not going to vote for something, you can't 48 hours later say, okay, uncle. Because once you do that, I just think you've weakened your position.
Do you think that they're going to try to get a deal this time? Do you think
they're going to try to get a deal, but here's what I said during the weekend. Look, guys, if it's about me going and taking some bricks and mortars and trading bricks for lives, I'm ready to trade them. I don't know how other people look at this, but I look at people's actual lives, and I said to myself, wow, what a wasteful sum of taxpayer money, right? To this despicable, dastardly wall. And then I also put next words out of my mouth to everybody was, but it's not about the wall. It's about ending legal immigration. Yes, I know they're going to say it's about a wall to stop illegal immigration. It's not. Because if that were the deal, Mayor, then why don't the Dreamers have green cards? Why haven't? We've offered the money.
I didn't quite understand his... You're a dreamer, but you have to work. It's a 12-year process to...
Yeah, it's a 12-year. You get 2 years off.
The runway on that deal, you get a wall today, and the runway on the Dreamers is 10 to 12 years.
But you know what? I said to myself, right now we have to put them in a safe place. Here's what I believe fundamentally. I believe Democrats are going to take back the House of Representatives, and we're going to be able to do... I think... After next November, things are going to be different. I believe in America in 2020. So I look at the future. So I say, whatever we sign up today, you can fix tomorrow. Any wall you build today, you can tear down tomorrow. Any wall you fund today. Here's what you cannot do. You cannot give a person back their life, right? If they lose it, if they're deported, if they're sent back, you've lost them. I fundamentally believe that. And so you have to do everything in your power at this particular point to stop that from happening. And if that means having to take on something that you feel is degrading and dehumanizing to you personally, big deal. I got my kids. I got my grandson. I want them to have a life.
Is the White House constantly moving the goalpost on this?
Yeah, so now here's what they're saying, Mayor. So now they're saying, oh, no. We want to stop chain migration. Chain migration. See, they use these negatively...
Connotation words.
Connotation. Yeah. So they call it. So American public, when they say chain migration, here's what they really mean. They mean the ability of a mom and a dad to get their children here to the United States with them. The ability of a husband to solicit their wife. I want you to think of a 30-year-old young man, and he wants his 15-year-old sister to join him. He's doing good. He's here. He now wants to bring her. That's the sibling category. This is about...
Can I say this?
And just so you're clear, this is about immediate family.
Luis, I really think this. I cannot, as... Everything I obviously hear on migration, I reflect in and out of Jewish experience. One person always came here to bring the other to establish.
Right.
I know that's true about Irish. I know it's true about Italian. I know it's true about people from India. I know it's. The Jewish experience into America was a chain, which I also agree with you is a horrible connotation. But the notion is we were always about one or two family members, individuals getting here, getting established, My grandfather came to a third cousin. He never knew. Welcome to chain migration.
And so they want to call it that, but and here's a Republican Party that establishes itself on the foundation of family values. That's what it's about. Guess what? If I'm in America, who do I trust most? I'm going to trust my brother. I'm going to trust my dad.
So if I'm asking you, okay, Luis, 2018, is there an forget what the details of it. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about immigration?
I'm pessimistic. I'm pessimistic.
Are you optimistic then in 2019 because of 2018?
Yeah, I am. I do believe I'm pessimistic because it's not about the wall, right? And just so we're clear, I met with Chief of Staff. So we're 3 feet away from each other. And there's Chief of Staff Kelly, and I said, "Can you define a wall for me?" Here's what he said, Mayor. He said, well, in some places, it's so inhospitable, right? The terrain.
Topography, yeah.
It's so
Arizona.
We're just going to make the terrain the wall. In other places, we're going to have drones and we'll monitor them, right?
Is this the section where he says that the president's view has evolved?
Yes, he says to me, I wrote it down and I put it in quotation mark in case a reporter were to ask me later. And he says, oh, the president, here's what he said. I'm going to tell you exactly what Chief of Staff said. He said, oh, the president went promising. And then he realized that he wasn't fully informed. He didn't say uninformed. I'm not challenging the Washington Post. But I remember he said the president wasn't fully informed on what that meant of building a wall. So we asked him, so what have, he says, well, it's evolved. I've educated him, he said. I was like, really? You're going to tell 50 Democrats in a room you've educated the president and he's evolved? I don't think he's going to take too kindly when people ask us about our conversation. But needless to say, that's what he said. He hasn't been fired as a chief of staff as of yet. He said, it'll be the topography. It'll be drones. In other places, it'll be sensors and cameras. He says, this idea that you're going to build a wall 50 feet high from sea to shining sea. That's exactly his words. That's ludicrous. That's not going to happen. And we can't deport 11 million people. That's foolhardy. We can't do that. So we need to have a solution. And I'm like, okay, cool. If that's the wall you're talking about, I'm in. Mm-hmm. Where's the down payment? Now, I want to make clear that this is a monstrosity built to stupidity to build this wall. That's what you want to build. You got to, I just felt compelled to say, to join Dick Durbin, to join Schumer as reluctantly as I was in joining Schumer, and to join the Democrats that were doing the hard work, and to say to the American public, this is all a lie. It isn't about border security. Those are interchangeable words, border security and the wall. And it really isn't. What this is about is what they call chain migration and they call it diversity. I want everybody to know that the majority of visas under the diversity program come from sub-Saharan Africa. And for you, on the one hand, to say you're going to end chain migration and to stop the migration of Africans, of black people, to the United States of America, free people, with their ability to bring their spouses and their family, right? Wow. Those are the people that they came here in bondage to the United States of America. And now they have a way to come to this country, which they helped build. Wow, they can come with their free will, free as free men and women, and we're going to end the program. So look, and I want everybody to understand, you think it's easy to fill out one of those forms if you're in Zaire or the Congo? You know, it's not that easy. And most of the people are, as they say, educated. People that are filling the forms out. Sometimes I start wondering what a drain it is, right, on their local economies to take such bright, talented people that are they're the smartest ones to fill out the forms.
I'm with. You're going to have to sit at that table, not me. And you guys are going to have to try to still get this, because you and I both know, we've seen it from residents, constituents, people, the desperate position, posture. And your work, your voice is the only kind of flicker of light in that tunnel for them. Yeah. And but
But they've talked to you. You've seen it. I've seen your eyes. You see how emotional we get with them. You have to remember it's about people's lives. And yes, you know what? It's a monumental waste of money to a monumental stupidity. But you got to get their lives saved.
No, those are the trades of being in public service.
Yes.
Now, because I know after 25 years, it's not easy to, as you think you're on the doorstep of finally pushing.
Yes.
Did you ever look back the next morning after you made your mental decision on retiring from Congress, not retiring from public service? Second guess yourself. What's the process?
Wow. Thanks for the question. It's not an easy process, but it just makes you work. I'll tell you what, they're going to get a lot of bang for their buck during
there's some pulp left in this.
There's 11 months. I'm going to do as much as I can, right, and work as hard as I can, because I know it's the last 11 months there in the Congress of the United States. But I want you to know, Mayor, I've wanted to come home for a long, long time. And
you're not going to call about getting the street light fixed, are you?
No, I'm not going to do that. But there are many, many challenges that still exist in America. There are many challenges. But I just got to say, I see people. I was on an airplane.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say what state. And there were 2 members of Congress, 2 in wheelchairs with they couldn't get on the plane except for the wheelchair. I'm not. Look, if that's the way you want to live your life, God bless you.
You got another chapter to write.
So I look at life, and here's why I don't have a regret. I remember having the press conference here in Chicago. I remember going to Washington, D.C., and I remember sleeping really, really well, knowing that chapter of my life was over. It has been difficult many nights. So I counted how many nights, 365, and over 25 years. It's 11 years that I did not live in my house for 11 years. And here in Chicago with my wife, with my kids, I was there, they were here. I don't want the public to listen to this and say, no, I'm not complaining. I'm simply describing a reality of my life. And so I'm looking forward to it. Yes, I do want to walk down the beach holding my wife's hand without worrying about it having to end the next day and having to go to Washington, D.C. And I do look forward to my travels with her. My grandson, he's Luis Andres. Right. He's 14. He goes to a wonderful school here, public school in the city of Chicago, Van Steuben. And it's a great program. It's an honors program there. He's in the honors program. And he's really bright. I asked him.
Great technology.
Very. And so I asked him, I said, Luis, so what are your favorite classes? And he said, I like engineering, I like algebra, and I like chemistry. And I was like, oh, thank God he didn't take after me. All right? That's the right road.
Does the kid have a resume? I hear we have an opening in Bureau of Electricity.
It looks like that's where he's going.
Luis,
I want to spend some time with him.
Let me ask you, when you started speaking up on immigration, you didn't set out to be the biggest, loudest voice on immigration.
No.
You set out to solve a problem for a constituent. Are you shocked at what it's come for you that you're the national voice on sensible immigration reform?
Wow.
You didn't set out to do it. It happened.
No, when I got there, it was about I want to be closer to the people of the 4th Congress than the back rooms of Washington, D.C. So my first legislation.
So you knew your pledge. You just remembered
that was my pledge from David Wilhelm. Right. It made me sure that I remembered it time and time again. And so I went to Congress, and my first thing was a pay freeze. And I froze the salaries of members of Congress through my legislation because it was adopted. The parking, the fringe, the franking. I wanted to make us closer to people, right? I wanted to strip all that, you're more important than the people, and bring us closer, because I felt that government needed to rekindle its relationship and gain trust. And actually, the Republicans did a pretty good job in '94 of using those very same arguments to throw the Democrats out, among other things. But that was one of their arguments. And So I didn't. That's what I thought. I thought I was a reformer. I was coming to reform the system, right? I thought I'd do campaign finance reform, those kinds of things, right? Very important, valuable things. It turned out when I looked at what the people, nobody was coming to my office and saying, thanks a lot for taking that pay freeze. I need to get my mother here, right? I want to become a citizen of the United States. Here are my problems, Congressman. And so I began to deal with those congressmen. So you knew you had to
champion those voices.
And I did. I knew I had to. And the more you talk to them, and the.
Can I say one thing so other people won't get? So everybody coming is not a voter, and yet you used your voice for people that couldn't vote for you. So it's not the traditional Chicago.
Right. It wasn't. And so I want. And the other thing is this. Here's the interesting. So when we did the citizenship stuff, people said, "Well, you're increasing, right?" And I said. And I remember sitting down with Soraya, and she said, what's your legacy going to be? I said, more people with more power, and no one can do anything about it. Because if I leave tomorrow, those 50,000 people that have become citizens, it's like educating somebody and giving them information. You can't make them stupid, right? It's like helping somebody become a citizen. You can't give them.
You can't strip
that power. They now have that power. They've tasted power, and they like it, and they're going to. So I always felt that I was going to leave that behind. So thanks for the question. It's a kind of you to ask. But then as we went to comprehensive immigration reform, you know what I'm thankful to? The people of the 4th Congressional District. They kept sending me back, and there were critics who said all he cares is about those illegals, those undocumented. You know, why isn't he talking more about education of the kids here in Chicago? Why isn't he talking more about your salary increases? Why isn't he talking more about your health care? Why is he always talking about people who aren't supposed to be here in the first place, right? And you know what? The citizens who could vote said, I want you to go be that voice in Congress. I know that that's your voice. I know that that's what makes you who you are, right? That's your soul.
Voters can always, in the end of the day, they figure out a person.
Right, and they said, we're going to send you to do that job, even though we know that we're citizens of the United States. And I really don't get much out of this, but I was, in many cases, once much like those people that you're helping. And you know what? It would have been pretty nice to have had you as a voice for me when I was going through the trials and tribulations. So Americans, don't forget.
Okay, quick round. Cubs or Sox?
The Cubs.
Thick or thin pizza?
Oh, I like the thick pizza.
Okay. Lake or river?
I like the lake.
Okay. Hancock or the Willis/Sears Tower?
I like Hancock.
Okay. 12-inch or 16-inch softball?
I like 16-inch. I got my thumb jabbed in a few times with it, but...
Folks, we're here with Chicago.
It's better.
Chicago Congressman Luis Gutierrez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
You are the American story.
Thank you.
All right,
appreciate
Matt.
it. It was fun to be with you this morning.
You're listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Rahm Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using #ShyStories. Thanks for listening.